Living on planet Earth can be really, really difficult. Think of all the tragedies and heartache, addictions and politics. How about wars and famine and earthquakes and hurricanes? But as Christians, we have something that most people don't have, and that is hope. Hope knowing that this earth is just temporary. And as followers of Jesus, we know this is not our forever home, which is really, really good news. Today, we're going to see Jesus meet a very sad widow who just lost her only son. And yet Jesus raises her son from the dead, gives her the most amazing, wonderful, here you go, temporary gift imaginable. But what do we do when we're like temporarily stuck on this earth? Join us today to find out. We're on a series called Time, and we're working our way through the Gospel of Luke. So, all right, I will tell you what happened. Nothing really happened this week, which was kind of interesting, but the kids yesterday, the day before yesterday, they came home and Dusty said, "Mom, there was a bomb threat at school up at Liberty." Isn't that weird? And somebody had apparently written that they were going to put a bomb off the next day, April Fool's Day. So the kids came home and they said, "Mom, no one's going to school tomorrow because of this bomb threat." And I'm like, "Oh, please, okay." I said, I don't worry a lot about stuff like that. So I'm like, you guys, if someone's going to put a bomb, they're clearly not going to tell you that they're going to do it. So you need to go to school. Well, this is what Dusty says. "How bad would you feel?" "Really, Mom, if that bomb went off and I died, how would you feel?" "Fine, you can take the day off." So everybody slept in yesterday. So, okay, what else do I have to tell you? I think that was it. Okay, let's just get going. Last week, we talked about the centurion, and our purpose for this series on time, what are you doing with your time, is because in Luke, we're seeing Jesus now travel. And as he travels, he meets with a bunch of different people, and each person he meets, we're going to learn something about how to connect our faith in our life and who Jesus is and what he can do and what we're supposed to do. And so that's kind of where we are. Now, last week we met a centurion who wasn't really even a believer, but he had such great faith. He was very, very self-sufficient. He worked for the Roman government, but he had enormous amounts of faith. And that was last week. Now, this week, Jesus is going to come in contact with a woman completely different than that. And some of you may not relate to the centurion, but you may relate to this woman more today, because what the deal is with her is she is a widow, and she's lonely, and she's lost her only son, and she's devastated. And for you may be here or you may be listening and you're like, yeah, I can relate to that, because I have lost somebody in my life, and maybe multiple people, and I am sad, and I don't know what to do. And so this is the woman that Jesus comes in contact with today. And so we're going to learn some lessons on this encounter that they had. Now, for a few minutes, I'm going to sound like Debbie Downer. Okay, so just know that because I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this world. Okay, I told Rob, I said, every time I say this word, he says, "Lisa, would you stop saying that?" Okay, but I say this world sucks, okay? And then he said, "Don't say that, say this world stinks." So I said, okay, this world stinks, but you kind of get the whole point, okay? The world is very, very difficult. There is a lot of sadness. There's a lot of just heartbreak and bad things that go on in this world. And I was thinking about the darkness that goes on just if you just turn on the news, okay? We see dark, everything seems to be dark. But I realized when we do this lesson this week that when God created this world, that was never his intent. Like, his intent was for you and I to be sick-free. Like, David should not be sick right now. Sin-free. There should be no sin. There should be no death. There should be no crying. There should be none of that, okay? And Jesus, that's how they created this world. But then, of course, in the garden, Satan decides to come in, and the whole Adam and Eve, and sin comes in the world, and everything's changed. And now you and I live on this planet Earth that is just not very fun a lot of the times, okay? But we have to know that that wasn't God's original intent. Rob and I we watched flashpoint when it was on. And there was a one the other night that made me go to bed very, very sad, and it made me realize about the world. And it was about a man who was mentally ill, and he needed to take medicine just in order to just be normal, okay? But he was a musician, and he played the piano beautifully. But he had to go off of his meds because when he was on his meds, he would say, I can't hear the music anymore. And so he would go off of his meds, and then he'd go into this craziness, and he ended up kidnapping a child, and it was a major production. And it had a really sad ending. And so I went to bed that night just really sad because I thought, this world is just dark. You've got child abuse and sex slave trafficking and kids dying of hunger. And so we see this darkness. 2 Corinthians 4, Paul tells us that in this world we are afflicted and persecuted and perplexed and struck down. Okay, now, if I said to you right now, let's pray, the lesson's over, okay, you would be like, serious? Okay, now I'm really depressed. But we're not going to do that because I'm going to go, I tried to come up with another name. Instead of Debbie Downer, I moved to Holly Hope, okay, because that's what you and I have as followers of Christ, is hope unimaginable. Because 2 Corinthians 4 in your handout says this. Paul says, we are afflicted in every way, but here's the good news, but we are not crushed. We're perplexed, but we are not despairing. We are persecuted, but we're not forsaken, and we are struck down, but we are absolutely not destroyed, okay? And that's really, really, really good news, because if you know Jesus, then you and I have hope in this world. And what I want us to learn today is this whole idea that we live on this planet Earth very, very temporarily. It's just, we're not here that long, okay? And so I want us to learn that today from this lesson, and we called it Temporarily Stuck on Earth, because that's kind of what's going on here. So let's see, first we're going to Luke 7:11, and we're going to see this town of Nain. It's in your handout, but it doesn't come out very good. This is the town of Nain that Jesus was walking into. Just a little FYI, back then there was no billboards, there was no asphalt, okay, and there was no electrical lines. Okay, so we're going to pretend this town without all of those things, but you can just kind of imagine that's what it looks like. Jesus is walking through. Imagine this being a dusty road, and he had a lot of people that were following him at that time. So let's look at verse 11. Soon afterwards, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a great throng accompanied him. Just as he drew near the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a large gathering from the town was accompanying her. Now, here we come upon a woman who has just lost everything. In that society, her husband is gone, who was supposed to take care of her. Her son was gone. There was absolute hopelessness in her life. And I was thinking about the fear of burying her son and then having to go home to an empty house. Like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. But for her, there was everything in her world was dark and it was black. And she had no idea who Jesus was. And then in one moment, everything in her life changed, because she came face to face with the light of this world. And what we see first with Jesus is the amount of compassion that he has. Because compassion is this idea of feeling somebody else's pain with your heart, okay? Something bad happens and your heart hurts for that person. Now, some of you know people like that. I did not get the gift of mercy and compassion. I think I've told you that before. I always say I wish I did, but I'm actually glad I don't, because I would cry all the time. And like when my hormone patch goes out, like I cry for like a day, and it's miserable. Like everything makes me sad. Like I realized this morning I was talking to a lady who had lost a lot of people in her life, and one of her sons, and honestly just talking to him, I started crying, and I realized my patch needs to be changed, okay? But there's just people that have empathy, and this woman is so awesome because she's lost so many people, but she's taken that. Now she knows how it feels, and she's going to use what she has learned to go help other people, and that's really awesome. So thank you for that. Thank you for everything you taught me today. Anyway, so for those of you that are here and you think that something bad happened and Jesus doesn't care, I want you to know that he really, really does. And he has tons of compassion. He feels empathy. Look at Psalms 34:18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. And I realize that when you're going through something and you may feel like God is distant, but he says, I am near to you when you are brokenhearted. That's really, really good news, because that is the compassion that Jesus has. And look at verse 13. He says, and when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said, do not weep. Okay? And I love what Jesus, he doesn't come to her and say, snap out of it, get over it, what's your problem? Like, he really did this empathy for this woman. And we see it when Lazarus, his friend Lazarus, died. And it said that Jesus wept. Okay, so I think we need to realize that when we talk about Jesus, it's not somebody who doesn't care about the things that you're going through, because he really, really does. But I couldn't understand why he wept. Because it's like, he's like, there's heaven, there's where people are going. But I started thinking, I bet he weeps because he knows how the world should have been. Like, he knows there shouldn't be death. This woman shouldn't be this sad. And he knows, I think he's just heartbroken for how this world has come about. So now Jesus shows up and he gives this woman this most amazing gift. Look at verse, it'd be nice if I put my glasses on. I don't know, for 14. And he went forward and touched the funeral bier, and the pallbearers stood still. And he said, young man, I say to you, arise from death. And the man who was dead sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Profound and reverent fear seized them all, and they began to recognize God and praise and give thanks, saying, a great prophet has appeared among us, and God has visited his people in order to help and care for and provide for them. And this report concerning Jesus spread through the whole of Judea and all the country round about. Now, that's an awesome story, okay? Because some of you who've gone through that wish Jesus would have done that for you, okay? But we talked about last week about how big God is and how he can do anything. And he's just he could raise people from the dead and cast demons out and heal the blind. And so that's the God that we put our trust in. But what's interesting is that Jesus only raised 3 people from the dead. Here, Lazarus, his friend, and a 12-year-old girl, Jairus' daughter. And so I don't really want to talk so much about the miracle that he raised someone from the dead. But what I want to kind of go a different, weird, odd direction today. And I want to talk about that this boy that Jesus raised from the dead is going to die again. And the widow is going to die. And Lazarus died. And you're going to die, and I'm going to die, and that's just the way it is. And I know that sounds really like you're thinking, I don't want to go to a Bible study that tells me that, but there is good news, and I'm going to tell you that, because what Jesus did for this woman was compassionately give this woman temporary joy. And I want us to really get that today. I want us to remember the word temporary. Now, I always tell you about this book John Ortberg wrote called When the Game is Over, It All Goes Back in the Box. And he did this about his grandmother always played Monopoly with him and taught him how to play and taught him how to be the best Monopoly player and gain money and gain houses, and you want to win the game. And he said that at the very end of every game, he would always say, okay, now it's time to put everything back in the box. And it didn't really matter that you won the game of life, but everything goes back in the box. And as depressing and weird as that sounds, the game is going to be over for us. So if that's true, then what do we do here on our little temporary stay on this world? Like, what is it? Because everything seems dark and everything, but something should get us excited. And so here is the good news. And if I had a drum roll, I would drum roll this right now. And here it is. What if we looked as followers of Jesus at this world completely differently, okay? Because we know that this is a dark world. But what if we said, you know what? I am called to be a light in this dark world. That's my job, okay? There's darkness all around. But what if all of us grabbed a hold of this thought that said, you know what? I'm that light. I'm the one that Jesus wants me to light the darkness around us. Look at John 8:12. Once more, Jesus addressed the crowd. He said, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not be walking in darkness, but will have the light which is life. Matthew 5:14, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do men light a lamp and put it under a peck measure, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. Philippians 2:14, do all things without grumbling or disputing, so that you will prove yourselves to be blameless and innocent children of God, above reproach in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation. Look at this. Among whom you appear as lights in the world. Now think about that. It's like Jesus says, if you're my follower, I'm the light of the world, and I'm taking my light and I'm giving it to you so that you can go out into this dark world and light it. Okay? I put these candles up. It's like here you've got, look at the darkness here, and then you got a candle, and then you got 2 candles, and then way over here, is it even up? I can't see where, yeah, now you got 50 candles, okay? And suddenly all the darkness around us is being lit up because it starts with one candle. Robert Stevenson is the author of books such like Treasure Island. When he was young, one evening, he was looking out his front window and he was fascinated by a lamplighter coming down the street lighting the old-fashioned gas street lights. He called to his Nana. He said, Nana, come quickly. There's a man coming down the street punching holes in the darkness. And I love that because it's like, that's our job. And instead of looking at this world as sad and miserable and it's awful, which of course we know it is, what if we began to see ourselves as saying, you know what? It's my job to punch holes into this dark, dark world. Just like Jesus did when he showed up in this woman's life. It was a dark life for her, and he showed up to give her light and hope. Now, last week, Rob was out of town. And when he goes out of town, I always say, okay, he goes out of town, which means I don't have to cook and clean, and I don't have to do anything. I can just sit in bed and study all day long. So it works really good for a few days. And then I started laughing, and I thought, well, I don't cook or clean anyway, so whether he's home or not, it doesn't really matter. But, so the plan was on Friday, he left to go out of town, and so I'm going to sit in bed all day, okay, not put makeup on. I'm going to eat peanut M&Ms, and I'm going to study all day long. So that's my plan. 9 o'clock, Cheyenne texts me, Mom, I forgot a dress. I need you to bring it to my school. Serious? This just ruins my whole day. Okay, whatever. So I had to go get dressed, put on makeup, do all that kind of stuff. And then while I was out, I said, well, I'll go to the post office. Well, then the post office is by a Mexican food restaurant. So then I'm like, well, I'll go with Mexican food, and I'll drink Dr. Pepper, and I'll eat chips and salsa, and I'll work on my lesson there. Okay, so I'm doing that. And then I realized somebody emailed me, and not emailed, Facebooked. I never even get on Facebook, but I did for some reason. And somebody was talking about a movie called Vale of Tears. Did anyone? Okay, I don't know if anyone else saw it, or I don't even know where the Facebook came from. Anyway, it's narrated by Natalie Grant. And it's all the story about India and the women in India. And you were talking dark, beyond dark hopelessness. And so I was driving and I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to go see the movie all by myself in the movie theater, and I'm going to drink my Dr. Pepper and eat my peanut M&Ms. It's all about that. It's just all about Dr. Pepper and M&Ms. It's kind of my thinking for Friday. And so I decided that I would go and do that, and now I know what it feels like to sit at the movie theater all by myself. Okay, so whatever. But what I did learn from this movie is that the women there, they're on this like caste system, and it's one of these things like if you are born poor, you will always be poor. It's not like the United States, like, hey, I'm gonna start my own business and we're just gonna, nope, it's not like that. If you're born rich, you will be rich, poor is poor. Women are completely and utterly second-class citizens. They are taught that girls are basically nothing, worthless. If you get pregnant and have a girl, it's not a good thing for you, okay? So they're just taught from the time they're born that girls and women are just worthless, okay? So now you've growing up feeling that way. Husbands will pass their wives from men to men because most of the men have gambling and alcohol problems. So they will send their wives out to prostitute in order to get money for their husbands, and the women have to do this. Suicide rate in India with women is 21 times the average rate worldwide. In 2010, there was 8,391 confirmed dowry-related deaths. So if I wanted to have Cheyenne marry someone, we would have to basically pay them off, and if we didn't pay them enough, then either they're going to kill me or kill my daughter. I'm not sure which. It's just a frightening place. Get a load of this statistic. Every hour, a husband burns his wife alive. Every hour. Okay, we are talking darkness beyond anything. I put a picture of something up here. No, don't worry, it's not of someone burning alive. I promise you I wouldn't do that. Okay, this is just, they live in just awful conditions. I had 3 pictures, but I couldn't get them all to come out right. 46 million widows languish in mud-caked slums. They're banished by their in-laws because the wife bears the blame for anything. If your husband dies and you're 18 years old and he's 20, it's your fault. Okay, I laughed when I thought about that because I thought, in India, it's always the woman's fault. In America, it's always the man's fault. It's always our husband's fault for everything, okay? It's like, no, he did that, it's not my fault. We never take the blame for anything. But in India, it's not like that. It's poverty, it's darkness, it's hopelessness for these women. But this is the good news. Guess what's happening? 40 years ago, Dr. K.P. Yohannan and his wife starts a ministry called Gospel for Asia, okay? He comes to Christ at 16 years old. And he doesn't just put his little lamp underneath he doesn't hide his light. He comes to the United States, he trains to be a pastor, God calls him back to India, they start Gospel for Asia, and they're like, we're changing this up, okay? We want these women to realize there's freedom in Jesus, we want to be the light, and because one man and his wife went into this country, their light is shining in this vast darkness like you can't even imagine. And what I saw in this movie is that when one candle's lit, then they go and tell their friend and another candle's lit, and it's just, this light is being spread all over India and giving women hope because somebody decided that they were a light. And it made me realize that's our job, okay? That's what you and I are supposed to do, is to be that light in somebody's dark world. To date, there's 67 Bible colleges that have been established in India. 9,000 men and women are receiving training so that they can go out and be lights. And it just reminded me that it's not only our job, but it is a privilege to tell somebody how to get out of the darkness and spend eternity in the light. And because in heaven, there's going to be no darkness ever. So if you know Jesus, you are going to the land of no mores. We've talked about this when we did Revelation, I think it was. We talked about heaven. When you get to heaven, there's no more sickness, okay? David won't be sick in heaven, okay? My dad got very, very ill the other day, and he won't ever be sick in heaven. There's no death. Rob lost his mom last year, and there just won't be any of that, okay? There's no more anxiety and fear. I can't remember if I told you, someone emailed me one time and said, I am homebound because I am so fearful and anxiety-ridden to walk out the door. And I was so sad. I'm like, why would you do that? You know, but people are just they're so sad. There's heartache and hurt and divorce and starvation and Iranian prisons that people like Saeed are in, and arthritis and cancer and drug addiction, alcoholism, car accidents, plane crashes, migraines, child abuse. But in heaven, there's no more of that. So why wouldn't we want to walk through life and be that kind of a light to tell people there's no more of that? Eternity is going to be filled with light and an awesome place to go. And our job is to help people not focus so much on the here and now, but to focus on eternity. Now, if you go to the movie with us, or if you've seen the movie trailer for that Heaven is Real with a little 5-year-old boy that supposedly died and came back, went to heaven, it's made me smile just watching it, because I thought, what's so awesome about that is I don't think that's why Jesus raised too many people from the dead. Because why would anybody ever want to come back here? I mean, really, heaven's kind of awesome. And so once you get there, I just don't know why anyone would want to come back. John 16:33, Jesus wants to let us know about this world. He says, I've told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace and confidence. In the world, you have tribulation and trials and distress and frustration, but be of good cheer, take courage, be confident and certain, undaunted, for I have overcome the world. I have deprived it of its power to harm you and have conquered it for you. See, Jesus makes sure to let us know that this world, we're going to have trouble. It's going to be a dark place. But the only time that it's going to be meaningful to us is if we say, my job is to be a light to help somebody else. Professional golfer Paul Azinger was 33 years old when he won on the PGA Championship. He had 10 tournaments that he had victories in. And he was at 33 years old diagnosed with cancer. And he really, really was frightened. And this is what he said. He wrote, a genuine feeling of fear came over me. I could die from cancer. Then another reality hit me even harder. I'm going to die eventually anyway, whether from cancer or something else. It's just a question of when. Everything I had accomplished in golf became meaningless to me. All I wanted to do was live. Larry Moody was teaching a Bible study on these tours, and he knew that this Paul Azinger was going through all this anxiety. And he sat down with him and he said this, Paul, we are not in the land of the living, going to the land of the dying. He said, we are in the land of the dying, going to the land of the living. And he said that one comment changed Paul's entire view of his life and his world. And he went through chemo and he recovered from his cancer and he returned to the tour. But he said that his bout with cancer completely changed his life. And he wrote, I've made a lot of money since I've been on the tour. I've won a lot of tournaments, but that happiness is always temporary. It just is. Whatever you and I do in this life, it is temporary happiness. It says the only way you will ever have true contentment is a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. He says, I am not saying that nothing bothers me, that things don't bother me still, but he says, I love this, I do feel I have found the answer to the 6-foot hole. Okay? I thought, well, that's kind of cute. But I think the problem is so many people feel that we're alive and we're living in the land of the living, but we're really not. Like, this is just a yucky place to live, but we're going to the land of the living. So while we're here in this land of the dying, what do we do? Like, what is our job? And I think that as a follower of Christ, our job is to tell people how to come to Christ and get to this land of no mores. My sister and I were talking the other day about my dad and my brother, and most of you probably, I don't know, if you don't know us, you don't know anything about us, but my dad and my brother own the largest steel fabrication company probably in the United States. And God has given them this really great passion for steel, okay? And so we went to Las Vegas probably a couple months ago, my dad and my mom and my sister and I, just for the day. And we would go down the Las Vegas Strip and we would see all these hotels. And these are hotels that my dad and my brother's company built. You know, if you've ever been to the Paris Hotel with the Eiffel Tower, okay, they built that. The Venetian, the New York, Mirage, Palazzo, MGM, Hard Rock, Rio. Okay, I just give you a list of them. In Phoenix, they've done so much stuff, all the Cardinal Stadium. And okay, they're just a big steel company. That's just what they do. But the weird part is when I was driving down there in Las Vegas, when Rob and I used to have a billboard company in Vegas probably 15 years ago, and it was right when all these really fancy hotels were coming in. And as we're driving by those really fancy hotels 15 years ago, they weren't really very fancy anymore. And they were kind of dumpy. They were kind of in dumpy areas. Everything just kind of went downhill. And it dawned on me. I said, you know what? Everything wears out. Someday, all those buildings that my dad and brother built are going to be gone. Someone's going to tear them down, and they're going to build new buildings. But the great part about what I was thinking is that my dad and my brother just love Jesus and they are very giving people. Okay, so they've taken this steel company and realizing that all these buildings someday are going to be torn down, but what is going to be important is the people that they were able to bless through this company. So they have a Bible study at their office, okay? It doesn't matter, whatever. Should you not? I mean, is it politically correct? Who cares? We're having a Bible study for the guys in the field. We're having a Bible study inside for the people who work inside. We just want people to know about Jesus, okay? They give money to different ministries and organizations so that kids can be, they don't have to starve, and kids can get fresh water, and they can be educated. And I realized that eventually all the stuff here, the steel and none of that's going to matter. The only thing that's going to matter is how many souls are going to be spent in eternity in the land of no more because of what they've done, because of the light. And so I think we have to look at ourselves and say, what am I really living for? Like, we have to ask ourselves that. And I want you to look at yourself and say, what about my career, my job, my business, my retirement, my family, friends, children, grandchildren? And we have to look at ourselves and say, okay, if I'm supposed to be the light, am I doing that? Am I being a light to all those that God has put me in this circle? Linda Ellis wrote, most of you probably know the poem The Dash in 1996. And I'll read it to you for those of you that did not. I couldn't, because of copyright, I couldn't write it down, so you have to listen. I'll do this in my poetry voice, even though I'm sure I don't have one. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears, but he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. And that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard, and there are things you'd like to change, for you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect, and more often wear a smile, remembering that this little dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? So I loved it because it made me realize that we have no control over when we're born, and we have no control over when we die. We have a lot of control of what goes on during those two dates. And when eternity is the goal, then our goal should be to motivate as many people as we can to get there. Like, that's kind of what our job is, because we are a little blip on this screen. Okay, so I didn't even ask anyone to help me with this. You do this. Because I just need you to hold this. Because because of the whole counseling thing a couple weeks ago, no one's ever going to offer anything because they're going to be like, nope, I'm not doing this. Okay, so this is kind of cool. This is history. All right, this is from the very beginning of time with Adam and Eve down there, and this is up to about 2006. And in the middle here, you'll see Jesus hanging on a cross. Right there. Okay, so think about this. This is history, everybody. This is thousands and thousands of years worth of history. And we are just, if you look at it like that, a little teeny tiny blip on this historical little screen. I'm doing this opposite, because this is not working very well. Someday I need to grow up and learn how to do this. But apparently, we never practice anything we do here. It's kind of sad. So I just wanted to remind you that life is really short. And so God, thank you, you're awesome. Okay, so thank you. See, that was painless. I can be nice up here when people are offer to help, right? Okay, so we're just a little blip, and I want you to realize that that's in the scope of life. Okay, what is our little blip here for? What should we be doing? And I think so many people will say, well, I'm not that special. And I'm going to tell you something. Yes, you are, okay? Look at Psalms 139:13. And this is what God says. Who says this? For you formed me, my inward parts. I think David said this. For you formed my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the depths of the earth. Your eyes have seen my unformed substance, and in your book were all written the days that were ordained for me, when yet there was none of them. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I have appointed you a prophet to the nations. Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so we would walk in them. Okay, so this temporary life, if you're here saying, yeah, but I just am not going to I don't do anything special. That's not true. God just promised you that. He says, I formed you. I have called you. You're my workmanship to go out and be the light into this dark, dark world. Look at, I thought about Moses. Exodus 6:28. Now it came about on the day when the Lord spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt that the Lord spoke to Moses saying, I am the Lord, speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all that I speak to you. But Moses said before the Lord, behold, I am unskilled in speech. How then will Pharaoh listen to me? And here is Moses going, you don't have a purpose for me. I stutter. I can't do that. You can't use me. And God's going, serious? You just wait and see what I have for you. And I think that so many of us are right where Moses is. They're like, well, I have 3-year-olds at home. I have teenagers at home, okay? My last child just got married. I'm too old. I'm 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. I can't do anything for God anymore. And yet, if the Bible is true, then God says, until the day you die, I still have plans to use you. I need you to be a light. Even if you are 80 or 90 and you are in a retirement home, okay, guess who needs light in a retirement home? Okay, wherever you are, God still wants to use you. But the great thing about Moses is he didn't let his stuttering, he didn't let his past get in the way. And I think the question we have to say, or what we have to pray to God is say, okay, God, what can I do for you while I am temporarily stuck on this earth? Because we are temporarily stuck on this earth, okay? Think about that. And now we have a job, okay? We're not here forever. And if we're a follower of Christ, then we have to be the light into this world. Moses had a wife and kids, and God gave him a huge job to get the Israelites out of Egypt. And see, there's no magic age. Like, I can serve God when I'm retired. Nope, you can't. You can. You should. There is no such thing as retirement when it comes to God, okay? So always remember that. This is funny. I thought it was funny. I hope you laugh. It always worries me. This has absolutely nothing to do with this lesson, okay? But we were talking about Moses, and I read this little story about a 9-year-old, and he learned this in Sunday school. He came home and he said, Mom, our teacher told us how God sent Moses behind enemy lines on a rescue mission to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And he said, Mom, it's so cool. When he got to the Red Sea, he had his engineers build a pontoon bridge, and all the people walked across the bridge safely. And he said then he used his walkie-talkie, and he radioed headquarters and called in an airstrike, okay? And then the bombers came in and blew up the bridge. The Israelites made it safe. The Egyptians died on the other end. They couldn't get through. And his mom's like, Joey, that is really what your teacher said? And he said, well, no, but if I told you what the teacher really said, you seriously wouldn't believe it, Mom. I thought that was so cute. Okay. Anyway, so here's the deal. Our job, bringing light into this world. And so your job is going to be figuring out what it is that you can do. And maybe like my dad and my brother, they have a business and they can say, we're doing a Bible study. Okay. Maybe for you, you work at a company and you're like, maybe I should go and ask my boss if I can do a Bible study at lunchtime for some people. I don't know. Step out there. Sometimes you got to be really, really bold. Maybe you like to work with kids, teenagers, elderly people, homeless, food banks. I saw this online, volunteermatch.com. If you go on there and say, I like to work with kids, they will give you all the places in the valley that need volunteers. It's so cool. I was like, that's an awesome thing. And then you can go be a light. Go find something that interests you, because he gave every one of us talents and purposes and jobs that he wants us to do this for him. The problem is we live in this culture that says this world is all about me. I live 80, 90 years, and it is just here to make me happy. And we want to spend our temporary time on this temporary earth doing everything temporary to make me happy. And then Jesus comes along and says, whoa, 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 I want you to make your life about me, and I want you to revolve your temporary time around eternity and around getting people there. And I even thought this was a cure for depression. Okay, so many people are depressed. But I thought, what if you were depressed and you woke up in the morning and you said, I don't even have time to be depressed, okay? My job is to be a light. I'm a light. I'm a light to this world. And if I can get that in my head, then why would I be depressed? I can't be depressed, okay? Because I have a job to do. My son, Micah, some of you know Micah. Mike and Shayla went, their 5-year anniversary was last week. And so they went to the Dominican Republic. And they decided that they would take the first 3 days and go to an all-inclusive resort where basically they would just be pampered and everything would be about them. They have missionary friends that live in the Dominican Republic who are missionaries. And so the second half of the trip, they were going to go and help serve with the missionaries. And he came home and he said, by far, the best part of that trip was the end. Because they got to spend 3 or 4 days punching holes into a very, very dark world. We got an email from him, and this is what it said. Today was a sad day. All these people just lost their homes in a recent fire. No jobs. They're surviving on credit from banks. The harvest doesn't come for 3 months, so work isn't in sight. They're Haitian. They're looked down upon. We met believers here who their only hope is in God taking care of them. The tin house, he sent a picture, is a makeshift place where what was left in the fire. The guy who occupied it is a believer. His wife recently died. His daughter was pregnant with twins and miscarried at 8 months. We were able to find 100 pounds of rice in a city nearby and give them to some relief. My heart is so sad for them. When you look into their eyes of these people will tear your heart apart. Although we are leaving soon, they will not be. We will discuss what to eat for breakfast, but they will not. We will ask if their shower has hot water, but they will wonder if there is even water at all. We are having an amazing trip. We have the funds in place to transform this community and give them at least a mattress or a pan or food. And we cried some time today, and even thinking about this tragedy makes me want to cry, but I just want you to know what we were doing. And this is what they were doing. They are caring more about punching holes in the darkness than they are themselves. Because life, honestly, I believe, is completely meaningless when it's all about us. And so today, I just want us to take this away, that Jesus gave this woman her temporarily gift of her son back. But it was just for a little while. And I am convinced that the only way to living an abundant life is to spend our time giving it away. And for some of you, you need to figure out what that means, okay? Find out what your passion is. I can't remember if we talked about this last week. What is it that makes you cry, or happy, or sad, or miserable? What is it that just you're so upset about that you have to do something and make a difference? Go do something when it comes to that, because we have a job, and it is to be lights in this very, very dark world, and do something. Now, I had the coolest thing happen yesterday, and it made me realize, like, I've been trying to get my nails done for like 4 days, okay? They were just long, and I don't have time. I hate to sit and do that. So I go and get my nails done and my toes done. I do it one time in 1 hour, like someone does my toes, someone does my nails, I'm done out of there because I can't stand to sit. It drives me crazy. So I've been trying for 4 days to get there. Like Monday I was going. Shani's like, Mom, will you go to lunch with me? Mom, will you go shopping with me? Okay, I hate to shop, but okay, whatever. So I went with her. So then yesterday I called and I'm like, can I get in? They're like, well, you have to wait for a little while. So I said, whatever, I'll go. Go there. She starts working on my nails. The lady who works on my nails is a Buddhist, okay? They're all Vietnamese, and most of them are Buddhists. You walk in and there's Buddha sitting there, and that they do whatever, feed them oranges. I'm not sure what that looks like or what that even means, but that's just how it always is. So I go there. A new girl starts working on my toes, and she's doing my nails, and I notice that she has a cross on. And the girl next to her working on the other lady has a cross on. So, because I'm so quiet, okay, I decided that I had to bring this up to the entire nail salon, apparently. So I said, oh my gosh, you're wearing a cross, and you're wearing a cross, and you're Buddhist, okay? So tell me how all this works out. And the girl doing my toes said, I'm a follower of Jesus, I'm a Christian. And I'm like, that is so cool. Like, how did that happen? Okay, the Buddhist, you can just feel the animosity. She's just like stressed that this girl's even talking like this. Okay, she's the owner of the company. She's doing my nails really fast. It was like lightning speed. So I realized if you want your nails done fast, talk about Jesus, okay? You'll get out of there in a nanosecond, okay? But the coolest part about it was as soon as she got done really fast, she walked away. And I said, how do we get them to like come to Jesus? And I said, tell me your story. She said, I'm doing this lady's nails, or toes, and she said, I asked her what she was doing that weekend, and she said, I'm going to church. And she said, as a Buddhist, if someone says I'm going to church, that's just bad. Okay, we want nothing to do with that. She says, the girl says to me, why don't you come with me? She says, this is my normal excuse. No, we're too busy. And this is exactly what this lady told me. I said, Luann, why don't you come to church with us sometime? No, I'm too busy. Everything's too busy, okay? And so then she tells me, she said, because of this woman inviting me, she gets saved. But she said the coolest part about this whole story is that my sister married a man who became a Christian, and she prayed for 8 years that God would save our entire family. She said she would cry at night and she would beg God to save us. And she said one by one, God would bring these people into our lives. And we're all saved now, and we all love Jesus out of Buddhism. And I thought that was the coolest story because I'll tell you, when I go to my nail place, this is what I do. I grab my lesson and I grab a book and I never talk to them because I assume they're Buddhist. They're not going to understand Jesus. Why would I even want to tell them? And this lady reminded me that girl who said, hey, come to church with me, she just punched a hole in a very, very dark world. And that made me so excited. I'm so excited today. I think it's because we're going to the movies in 1 minute. Okay, coolest part of the story. This morning I walk in here. I asked her to call me because I wanted to hear the rest of the story. I said, call me. Walk in here, and this man walks in, and he goes to my husband's Bible study. And he walks in, he said, I'm sorry my wife Michelle didn't call you back. I'm thinking, who's Michelle? Like, who are you? And he said, you met her at the nail place yesterday. That's my wife. And her husband goes to my husband's Bible study, and we never even knew it, okay? And it was the coolest thing. So anyway, whatever. Find something. Everyone here has a story, okay? The Wilders have a story about Mormonism. Sheila Walsh has a story about mental health. Lynn Childers, who's coming, was a stripper and a drug addict. Everybody has a story. Take that story and go be a light into the world and do something because everyone has people that surrounds them. And if you are here and you are watching us online, you have no idea what we're talking about, and you're like, I want to know this Jesus that will give me hope and light, go email me. It's lisa@womensbiblestudy.com. Is that what it is? Womensbiblestudy.com? Yeah. Lisa@womensbiblestudy. Does that make sense? Is that an email address? Yes. Lisa@womensbiblestudy. Yeah, whatever. You'll find me. Go to womensbiblestudy.com. That'll get you there. Anyway, I will send you a book, okay? Whatever you need, we want you to know that Jesus is the light of the world. You will have no hope in this world without him. So, last verse. This is our job. Acts 26:18. To open their eyes that they may turn from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God, so that they may thus receive forgiveness and release from their sins and a place and a portion among those who are consecrated and purified by faith in me. It is our job to be a light to turn people from darkness. Figure out what that means. Thanks for coming today. We are going to the movie. So excited. Popcorn, peanut M&Ms, and Dr. Pepper. Woohoo! All right, let's pray. God, thank you for this day. Help us to go out of this room today and be lights to a very, very dark world. God, that's our job. How awesome it is that you have entrusted that to us. Help us to figure out in each one of our lives what that means. Thank you, Jesus, for being the light of this world and the hope to our life. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, I hope today's lesson helped you knowing that God has given you a purpose. If you're a follower of Jesus, he's given you a purpose while we are living on this earth. And that purpose is to serve him, to live for him, to tell others about him. And the good news is that compared to eternity, we really kind of are starting to understand that we are seriously just temporarily stuck on this earth. Hope that helped you today. Have a good week.